Welcome to Business Tips with Michael Tobian. Today we're going to talk about creating an effective business logo. All right, today we're going to talk about a few different things in regards to business logos. We're going to talk about things to consider when you're making your logo, the actual design process of the logo, and then we're going to look at some logo examples from businesses that I have, and I can talk about what was effective and what wasn't. Your logo is something you're going to want to put some thought into because it's permanent. It's not something you're going to want to change very often. And if you do change it, it affects your branding because you've branded this logo and people associate your business and your quality and of your product and services with this little image, and it's something that represents something. So when you change the brand, especially if you change it to something completely different, you've really thrown away some good marketing that you've been building just by having a good product. Companies that change their brand, they usually do so fairly subtly. If you remember a while ago, Pepsi changed their logo. Well, it's not that much different. When companies modernize their logo, they want to keep it the same vibe so that years and years and years aren't wasted of branding this particular logo that was associated with high quality. So taking a little bit of time to think through this is worthwhile. So it's important that your logo look really professional, even if you're a small business, because you want to grow your business, and eventually you're going to regret having this logo that you didn't really spend much effort with if you've grown. I ran into this problem where I designed a logo, and the logo was actually fine and it was good, but it wasn't great. But I had a really small business, and then it really grew, and then I went, and so I had to redo the logo. Luckily, I kept the same vibe and feel, and we're going to talk about this later. But I really wish I would have spent more effort thinking through this logo. A logo is going to be that first impression that people see. So here's some things to consider. How simple do you want to make your logo? Sometimes a complex logo can be beneficial in certain situations, but I think usually the simpler, the better. Unique and simple is usually good. Now, I've had logos that were really gaudy and complicated, and it really worked for that particular business, but I'm usually trying to keep it simple. Another thing to consider is the shape of your logo. I have found that the logos that I'm happiest with tend to be kind of rectangle in shape. They usually fit in the corner of the website really well in a rectangle way. Most mediums, I think, kind of are conducive to a rectangle type logo. But it's good to get a logo that can change shape without changing the image of the logo too much. Usually logos have a button or an image and then some kind of word. Not always, but sometimes you can rearrange that in different ways for different mediums. I kind of like that. But generally that rectangle shape is better. I've run into problems where I've had really big horizontal logos, and it doesn't really work very well with certain mediums, on websites and things like that. So I'm not telling you to make it rectangle, but that's something to consider. Okay, another thing to consider is what kind of logo do you want? I kind of put logos in different categories. Let me give you examples. There's what I call the word mark, which is basically just a word. It's a font. It might be a completely unique font that's designed, but there's not a lot of imagery that goes along to it. It's just a word, kind of like Google or some of these other word mark type logos. Then there's pictorial logos, which will have a picture of an animal or something like that is unique, but it is a picture of something. Some mountains, maybe your business is surrounded by mountains, or your business has something to do with a very specific picture. Well, you may want to consider a pictorial type logo. Okay? Another one is abstract logos. So you'll see this where, it's not really much of an image. It's a unique image that's been designed. Maybe it has something to do with the business, maybe not. Maybe it's just something totally unique that they're just saying, we're gonna brand this abstract image. So everyone eventually will recognize this as something high quality and something that represents our business. And then there's combinations. You'll see different businesses that have kind of a combination of some word mark elements with some kind of graphic, okay? Nowadays, you'll see a lot of logos that are pretty dynamic. I already said Google, but Google's another one. They'll do that daily Google doodle where they'll change the colors and the scheme of the logo but it's still the same kind of vibe. You'll see a lot of companies do this. All right, now we're going to talk about the actual design process of your logo. There's different ways you can go about doing this. You can hire somebody to do this through some kind of professional service. This is how I usually do it. I usually get my logos designed by freelancers through freelancer.com or Fiverr or one of these websites. The way I usually do it, Freelancer is kind of cool because they have a logo or a project contest, and then they have a feature where you can search for freelancers based on their work, and they can bid certain projects. With logos, I really like to do these logo contests. What you do is you allocate a certain budget, and you guarantee that whoever wins the contest is going to get that prize amount. And I'll usually be very specific and say, I'm looking for this type of logo. I kind of want it to be like this. And then I just put it out for a contest. And whoever wins gets the amount. And I get so many contest entries. In fact, sometimes I get too much. I've done them where I've gotten thousands of entries that I had to look through. Well, it's nice because I can just filter through them and say, I like that one. I like this one. And I narrow it down to like maybe 10. And then I usually end up with a logo I'm really happy with. So those logo contests are good ways to do it. You can do them fairly inexpensively, or you can spend a lot of money on it. I would just consider what your budget is. I usually try not to go too cheap. I found that and I don't want to spend too much because I found at a certain point you're not getting much more benefit. I've found that don't do it based off your budget. But I found if I usually do a couple $100, I get a pretty high quality, unique logo. And I've spent more than that, and I found that I don't get much better of a logo. So that's kind of my threshold for those types of things. That's really motivating for a lot of people to say, yeah, I'm going to whip together a logo. And once I get one I really like, sometimes I'll have them make little changes, but then I'll award them the winner. There is some cautions I want to tell you when you're doing this. You want to make sure some of these freelancers on these sites, they'll just throw garbage up. They'll put clip art. They'll sometimes copy a logo that's already in use. This is against the policies of freelancer.com and some of these websites, but sometimes you get people doing it anyway. So the way I would combat this is two things. I would first make sure you look at their rating and reviews. A lot of times these people will just have hundreds of reviews, and if they're all positive, you're not probably going to run into somebody who's using clip art or trying to short change the project. Another thing that you can do to avoid this is I will specifically put in the description, I do not submit clip art or anything that's not original work, or I will report it to the Freelancer or Fiverr or whatever you do. And that oftentimes dissuades people from doing that. But I have seen certain things where I said, that looks awful clip arty, where they maybe took an already existing image. So be careful about that. But if you do those logo contests, you can often get a really good logo, or you can bid it out to other freelancers, okay? I would also be really specific about what you want when you do this. Or you'll get all kinds of different things. As specific as you can, you still want the artist to, have the ability to do something creative, but give them specific parameters that are important to you for them to go through, or you'll just get a lot of wasted time looking through things that are not even remotely what you're looking for. All right, let's talk about the final product real quick. Once you have a logo that you like, you're going to want that delivered to you in Adobe Illustrator probably. That tends to be the standard for logo and simple graphic design, is something through the Adobe Creative Suite software. For logos, usually people use Illustrator. So if you have that Illustrator file, and you're sending it off to some kind of media, they're going to usually want that Illustrator file or some other file that they can manipulate. You're also going to probably want a JPEG and a PNG file, which you could go into Illustrator and export, or you just have it delivered to you. The difference between JPEG and PNG is a JPEG is going to be a rectangular file, so if you have your logo that's some kind of circular shape or a custom shape, the background is going to be white or black or a particular color, and the file is going to be in a rectangular shape. PNG file will have a transparent background, so your logo is going to be circle or whatever shape your logo is, and the background won't necessarily be a color, it'll be transparent so that you can overlay the exact logo shape over your website or some other image or something like that, okay? And then there's, you're going to want to ask for a black and white version and a color version. And if you have any variations of the logo, you should ask for that. And they'll just give you kind of a folder with these logo files. And if you can get a little bit of Illustrator experience, you can go in and you can change the colors and you can manipulate some things. Another cool thing that you can do, and you'll need the Illustrator file usually to do this, but you can hire somebody through another service, kind of like Freelancer or Fiverr has several people who do this, is you can animate your logo. So you can have somebody kind of go in, they usually use Adobe After Effects or something like that, and they go in and they'll make the logo appear in a nice way. That's sometimes nice to overlay over a video or something like that. So you can look for logo animation services if you're going to be doing a lot of videos. All right, let's talk about some logo examples. Here's a few logos from some businesses that I have. I've got a company called Utah Live Bands, okay? I designed this logo many years ago, and I just recently changed it to this logo. I like the rectangular shape. I feel like it looks a little bit more modern and a little slicker. I designed the original logo, and I think it's good. I think it could be better, so I sent it out to, I think I did it on Freelancer. Actually, I did it as a logo contest, and I said, I want a logo that's very similar to this, but a little bit different. I wanted to keep that same branding because I didn't want to ruin that, but I wanted to make it just like a little bit slicker and a little bit more modern. So that's what I came up with. That's a pretty simple logo. I have another company called Empire Casino Parties that has this logo. It's more complicated. I kind of liked that. I kind of wanted this like Empire feel of where there's a lot going on, there's a lot of action and it's an excitement. So that's an example that's different than I usually think is best, to where I actually didn't want a simple logo. I wanted something kind of complicated and exciting. And here's even a more extreme example of the more complicated logo, is I had a band called Amplify Aerial Band. And I had this logo made. As you can see, it's very intricate. That band was really interesting. We had band members that were on flying systems that were going around the room, and it was this big show. And I wanted a logo that had a lot of energy. Okay? On the more simple side, here's a logo of a company that I have called Line Boost. I was going for super simple but unique. Okay? Here's another company that I have called Morning Rain Cleaning Solutions. Pretty simple logo I had designed. Okay? These were all done through those contests I talked about earlier. I've got a band called the Groove Merchants with this logo. There's not a whole lot to this logo, but it is kind of like powerful and exciting. This is a party band. This is a band that gets paid a lot of money to perform and entertain big conventions and things like that. So I wanted something that kind of showed some star power, some energy, okay? So it's simple, but it kind of exudes some energy. I've got another band called Mimi Valentine and the Gentleman's Club. It's a little more sophisticated. This was not a big project of mine. This was just kind of a smaller thing. So I just kind of quickly designed a logo. You can see it's just simple fonts. Those are not very unique fonts. I think this one is copper plate Gothic bold. There's nothing unique about it. And I just drew this little monocle thing with the mustache, and it's just kind of a cute little logo. Well, I probably need to redo this logo because it's not unique enough. Okay, thanks for joining me today. Just to review, we talked about the things to consider when looking at your logo design, the actual design process, and we went over some logo examples. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel if you'd like more specific instruction and tips on running your business, all facets of business ownership. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.